Hey guys, thanks for joining for an episode of Learn to Play Games. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Magic Maze. This is a game by Dude Games. It is a 1 to 8 player game that takes roughly 5 to 20 minutes to play, and is a fully cooperative game, so all the players are working together to defeat the board. In the game itself, the heroes have had all of their equipment stolen and must travel to a local mall to steal new equipment and make it out of the mall for their next adventure. So this is done by the players getting action tiles, and each player is going to have their own unique action tile, which will allow them and only them to do certain actions. So the players must work together using the actions that they have to coordinate the 4 different heroes' pawns' movement around the board. And they must do this in a timed manner to get to each individual hero's equipment and to make it out of the mall before the time runs out. Now they're going to do all of this as in silence. No player can talk, they can't communicate. The only things that players can do is stare intently at other players and put the do something token in front of other players. Other than that, there is no other forms of communication at all throughout the game when the stand timer is running. So my opinions of this game so far, I've really had a good time with this one, and I would definitely recommend checking this one out. It is a fast game, it's very easy to teach, there's not a lot of rules to complicate things, and everything is really laid out very well, and it adds those really unique aspects to the game. I love cooperative games, and with this one being cooperative but not being able to communicate with the other players when that stand timer is running is really interesting. It adds some frustration and just cooperation in a different level. It's definitely something that's unique, and it's definitely something that I would recommend checking out if this is your style of game. If you like time crunchers, if you like racing against the clock and working together, this is definitely one that I would check out. So other than that, if you guys enjoy these videos, I would, if you can, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you're interested in keeping up to date with all my videos, go ahead and ring that bell as well so you guys get notifications when I release new videos. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you guys how to play. So the first thing we're going to look at are the action tiles. At the beginning of the game, during setup, depending upon the number of players that are playing, you're going to grab the corresponding action tiles, which will have a number in the bottom corner of each tile. So this is a single player game, so if you're playing a single player game, you'll use all 7 tiles, which will have one symbol on each of the tiles, which is up, down, left, and right, the vortex, explore, and escalator. If you're playing more than one player, then you'll grab the corresponding action tiles, and some of them you'll have more than one action on the tiles depending upon the number of players. The more players that you play with, the fewer actions will be on each tile. And each player that has an action tile will only be able to perform the actions that are listed on their tile, as you guys are going to see later on. No matter the number of players that are playing the game, you're always going to include all 4 of the hero meeples in the game. These meeples are the yellow barbarian, the orange dwarf, the green elf, and the purple mage. And each of these meeples also has a symbol corresponding to it, so that if you're playing with any players that are colorblind, they can use the symbols as well as a reference so that they don't have to distinguish the colors. Then we also have the theft tile, which once all the players are on their corresponding matching symbols, then you'll build any player can flip this tile over, and that will mean that the heroes have stolen their equipment thereafter. From that point on, the heroes are trying to get to their exits, and the vortex is no longer able to be used. I also want to give you guys a breakdown of the tiles included in the game. So each tile represents a different area of the mall, and each tile is going to have these little corridors which are where the heroes can move. Heroes are never able to move on to any of the illustrated areas. They must stay within the corridors of each of the tiles. Then each tile is going to have a number of different icons on it. First off, each tile is going to be numbered, which is going to correspond to the scenario that the players have chosen, and they will select the scenario and then gather the tiles that they need. Then we're going to go through some of the icons on the tiles. First off, you're going to have these little exit points on each tile, which are going to have a little magnifying glass and the icon for the hero that can use that tile to explore a new tile. Once the tiles are explored, heroes are free to move through those points at any point in time. Then we have little vortex symbols, which the player that has the vortex is able to move any hero anywhere in the dungeon to any one of their colored vortex symbols. We also are going to have the little white arrows, which when a hero explores a section, so if our dwarf is here and he explored here, this is where we would line it up and use the little white arrow in the direction that the dwarf explored. Each hero is also going to have their items icon on a tile, which is where they're trying to get to initially to steal their item for the first part of each scenario. We also have the sand timer icons, which when a player moves onto the sand timer, they're going to place an out of order token on it, and they're also going to flip over the sand timer to give the players additional time. We have escalator symbols, which we're going to cover those more later on. And then each hero is also going to have their own specific things within some of the tiles, which I'm going to cover a little bit more later. Finally, there's going to be one tile for each of the characters, which is going to be their exit points. And they're going to have a lot of walls along that tile that are going to match that color to easily show the players that that is an exit point tile for that particular hero. For setup, the first thing you're going to do is choose a scenario that you'd like to play. So I'm going to show you guys the introductory scenario, and then you're going to place the first tile out, and that is the 1A tile, or if you've played games before, you can also choose to use the 1B side. Either way, you're going to have the starting tile out, and then you're also going to place out the 4 hero pawns in a randomized order around the center of the tile itself. From here, then, according to the scenario, you're going to grab the map tiles that you need. So with this being the first scenario, it says that we need to have the map tiles 2 through 9. So we'll go ahead and grab those and shuffle them up, and then place them somewhere for the players to draw from later. Next, then we'll go ahead and grab the action tiles based on the number of players. So I'm going to show you guys a 3-player game. So I'm going to grab the 3 action tiles with the number 3 on them. We're going to go ahead and give out one of these action tiles to each player. And then each player is going to orientate their action tile to have the same facing as the starting tile's north facing. So we'll have all of our players facing like that. At this point, then the players are allowed to talk about their strategy and determine their moves. When the players are ready, then they're going to go ahead and flip over the sand timer, and at that point, then no player is allowed to talk. So there's a couple other very important rules I'd like to cover real quick before moving into the game. So the first one is the communication restrictions. So during most of the game, you are not allowed to communicate. You are not allowed to speak, point at something, make signs or signals, or make any sounds. The only things you are allowed to do is you can stare intensely at another player, and you can take the do something pawn and place it in front of a player to tell this player that it is time to do something. Each time the sand timer is flipped over, the players are allowed to speak for as long as they wish while the sand timer continues to flow. No actions may be performed during this discussion time, and as soon as any player performs any action, all communication must cease again. The other thing is the time restriction. So if the sand timer ever runs out, you lose the game. And each time a hero pawn is moved onto an available sand timer space, you must immediately flip the sand timer regardless of whether that gets you more or less time. Each sand timer space can only be used once, after which you will place an out of order token on it. During the game, you can perform actions depicted on your own action tile at any time and as often as you wish. You cannot perform any actions that are not on your own action tile. There are no turns, so you can act whenever you notice that one of your actions may be useful. And you are never allowed to stop another player's movement or action. That player must decide when it is appropriate time to stop. So whenever the players are done with all their discussion and they're ready to move into the game, then one of the players is going to flip over the sand timer and the game will start. At this point, then none of the players are allowed to talk, and each of the players is only allowed to perform the actions that are listed on their tile. Now I'm going to go ahead and take you guys through each of the actions so you guys can see how this works. And again, keep in mind that the players are going to be doing these actions simultaneously, where I'm only one person, so I can only show you guys these so quickly. So first off, the first action that players can perform is the move action. This is going to allow the players to move the hero pawns as many spaces as they want in the direction indicated on their own action tile. Hero pawn's movement must end before it hits an obstacle, which is considered a wall, or another hero, pawns can never move into the same space as other heroes. There can never be more than one hero in each space, and hero pawns can only move onto corridor spaces and can never move into the illustrated areas that are on each of the tiles. And again, like I said, heroes cannot move through other heroes, so they must move around them. They can never be on the same space. So if we look at some examples of this, again, like I said, all the players are going to be doing this simultaneously. But let's go ahead and say, for example, that our player down here notices that the purple hero can move over to explore that space. Simultaneously, the player up here notices that the green pawn can move down, and our player over here is going to move the orange pawn up there. And then our player over here is going to move the green pawn over. So as the players are doing these actions, it's really good to keep your hands moved away from the board so the other players can get to them. So as soon as you do an action, go ahead and pull your hand back so other players can get in there to help you out. The next action we're going to look at is to use a vortex. So if your action tile has the vortex symbol on it, then you may move any hero pawn from wherever it is to any vortex space of its color. So for example, with our player up here, he has the vortex symbol, so he can move any of the pawns to any of the spaces that have their vortex symbol color. And this can be anywhere on the mall, so as we add additional tiles, that player can move pawns to those different areas. Now, once the theft has occurred, the vortex system is shut down. It cannot be used during the rest of the escape. So at that point, then the player would flip over his tile to the vortex, the X side of the vortex, to show him that he cannot use this anymore. And it'll be the same on the theft tile. Once this is flipped over, it's also going to show the red X to again remind the players that they are not allowed to use the vortex symbol or system. Another action the player can perform is to take the escalator. The player that has this action can move a hero pawn from one side of an escalator to the other, no matter which way the escalator is orientated. The hero pawn can never stop on the escalator. So our player up here has that action, so he can move any player that is on one side of an escalator to the other side. He can never stop in the middle, and he can go in either direction. And again, he can do this as many times as he wants to. The last action we're going to look at is the explore action. So the player with the explore action has the responsibility of adding new tiles to the board. This can only be done when a hero pawn is standing on an exploration space of its own color that leads to an unexplored area. So for example, we have two of those. We have the orange hero on an explore space that has a non-explored edge, and the purple hero. So it'll be up to this player to play tiles to explore new spaces. So once a hero pawn is on an exploration space of its color, the player with the explore action can reveal the top tile from the deck and place it on with the white arrow so that it continues from the exploration space used. If several hero pawns are on matching exploration spaces and the player with the explore action draws a tile, looks at it, and chooses in front of which hero it's going to be placed. Only reveal one tile at a time and place it before revealing the next. Once a passage has been explored, any hero pawn can move through it in either direction regardless of color. So again, if we're looking at the earlier example, our player up here has that explore action, so he has two heroes, so he can flip over the next tile, look at it, and choose in front of which hero he's going to place it. So both of only our purple hero has an explore action over there, so let's go ahead and do it over here so that the purple player can continue moving. Then we'll reveal the next one, and then we can line this one up so that the white arrow is in front of that space. At that point, then the heroes can continue moving, trying to get to the next explorer if they need to. Now that we've covered all the actions, let's go ahead and see how the game looks in action. So again, remember that I'm only one person, so I'm going to try to explain this as best I can, as if there was 3 players playing this. So let's go ahead and start that sand timer and start on the different stuff. So our player down here is going to go ahead and continue moving our hero over there, and he's going to shift this hero down here. Simultaneously, that player then will shift our hero down here and explore a new tile. So we have found the exit tile, which is good. And so our player over here is going to pop him back over into that area there. Player up here will use the escalator space, and our player will also explore a new zone. So he has found the barbarian space that he needs to steal his sword from. So then he's going to, this player over here will continue moving that guy there. Our player up here is going to shift him down. Our player over here will shift this guy down. Player up top will move him down and use the escalator to move him up. Our player over here is going to shift this guy down 2 spaces, and he'll also move the green guy over. We'll shift down from here on there and then explore the next space. So we have another tile, and there's nothing over here. Well, there is a green explore action, so we'll go ahead and continue there. And like I said, this is going to continue with all the players moving the pawns around, so I can only keep up with so much. When the players feel like they need more time on the sand timer, one of the heroes can move onto the sand timer space and place a X, a out of order X on it, and then flip the sand timer over. At that point, the players are allowed to talk and discuss their strategy as the sand timer is running, but as soon as one of the players does an action, then the players have to stop talking again. And the players are going to continue doing this, revealing tiles. So let's go ahead and add some more tiles so you guys can see some of this. The purple player will say he made it there. We'll go ahead and add another tile down here. And we'll put our green player over there. And then our final tile here, we'll go ahead and say that our players have made it down here. So as soon as all the heroes are on their different areas, then one of the players can flip over the theft tile. So the stealing is not an action. When all 4 hero pawns are standing on the object spaces corresponding to their representative color, any player can trigger the theft. By flipping the theft to the B side, players must make their way to the exit to escape without the vortex system, which has now been disabled. If the theft tile has not been flipped, and the theft has not yet occurred, if a player leaves the mall without having flipped the theft tile, then you're going to lose the game as you did not steal the equipment that you needed yet. So like I said, at this point, when we flip the theft tile over, all the vortex symbols will stop working, so the player that has the vortex action will flip his tile over, and then the players are all going to make their way towards their respective color exits. With this being the introductory scenario, we only have the one exit that all the players are trying to get to. But in later scenarios, each hero is going to have their own colored exit that they must get to. Once a pawn gets to that exit, unless the scenario says otherwise, you can go ahead and remove it from the board as it has escaped the mall. If all 4 players have escaped the mall before the sand timer runs out, then the players have won the game. Otherwise, if the sand timer runs out first, then the players have lost. So the one other thing I want to go through real quick is the introductory campaign. So it's going to add additional rules, and I want to take a closer look at each one of these so that you guys are fully prepared as you guys play through this. So obviously the first scenario, like we already talked about, has its own set of rules. You're allowed to talk during the entire game if you want to, and you can do some of the things that normally you can't do. As you play through each scenario, it's going to add new permanent rules that are going to affect how the game plays, and as you get to the end of that, as you play additional scenarios past that, all of those rules are going to be permanent throughout the rest of the campaign. So in scenario 2, like I said, all the heroes are going to have their own special exit point. Moving on to scenario 3, whenever you flip the sand timer over, then you're allowed to talk for a brief amount of time as the sand timer is running. And then once one of the players does an action, then you must stop talking again. And then as you move into scenarios 4, 5, and 6, it's going to add special abilities to each of the heroes that only that hero can do. So for example, let's go ahead and say that we added this tile here. So this is going to have a number of features on it that only the heroes can do that are of that color. So first off, the dwarf player, the orange pawn, is the only pawn that can move through these little small doors into the different areas. You have a special loudspeaker for the elf pawn. Whenever it explores an area that is not explored yet, it can use the loudspeaker, which works exactly the same way as when you flip over the sand timer. The players are allowed to communicate again as the sand timer is running, and then again when one of the players does an action, then they have to stop talking again. The purple player also has their own action, which is the crystal ball. So when that player is on there, the player with the Explore action can choose to flip over 1 or 2 tiles, adding them to the mall section. So let's go ahead and say that we add this one over here, and it can be added anywhere on the mall. And then we'll add this final one. Let's go ahead and add it. Let's go ahead and add it over here instead and have that one somewhere else, just so that I can show you guys how this last action works. So the final special feature is for the Barbarian. We'll have security cameras that are going to be monitoring the mall. If there's ever 2 or more active security cameras out there, then the players are not allowed to use the sand timer. And the only person that can disable that is the Barbarian. So when the Barbarian moves on there, then you will add an out of order token onto that space. So the Barbarian can minimize the security cameras. So as one comes out, it's starting to get a little tricky. As 2 or more come out, that's when these sand timers will not be able to be used until the Barbarian gets up there and starts disabling at least one of them down to where there's only 1 active. From there, then, like I said, all those different special rules are going to apply for the rest of the scenarios, and you could go through and play the rest of the campaign and even create your own scenarios. Well, I hope you guys found this video helpful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. If you enjoy these videos, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it will help me to continue to grow and bring new and exciting games to you guys. You can also find the links below to my Facebook and Twitter accounts and let me know what you guys are playing or doing. If you guys are interested in me covering different games that I may not have found yet, or just anything at all. I love to start conversations with you guys and love to talk games. So hit me up there or in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys are doing. And as always, thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my videos and to leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it, and I do take into account everything you guys say, and I do look at it to try to improve my videos. I want to make the best possible videos, so continue dropping those comments. Let me know how I'm doing or ways I can improve. Love to hear from you guys. And as always, I will see you guys later.